Here are the headlines.
Welcome. If you're new to the channel, my name's Elliott and you're watching Rickety Ski Reviews. Today, we're gonna shamelessly rip off the format of Ski Essentials and compare skis to each other. Now, these are going to be all mountain skis. I have kind of skis on either end of what I would call all mountain, but this is your typical all mountain daily driver type ski, and we're gonna compare them as we go down the line in all of the skis I've reviewed. I've kind of excluded some skis where I've just not skied in them in so long that I can't really speak to them. I'm also leaving out any ski where basically the ski has changed a ton and you can't buy it anymore, or it's basically irrelevant to the conversation. These are all skis that you could daily drive, take onto the mountain, and have a pretty good chance on an average day of enjoying them. This is an average ski for the average day at the ski hill. If you were gonna own one pair of skis, this is the first ski I would suggest buying. I've tried to organize these based on what kind of snow I would wanna take them on. This side of the wall is more like firm snow or not high depth snow. This is more of like corduroy groomed runs. That's where I feel like these skis tend to shine. And as you work your way over this way, these are skis that kind of tend to perform a little bit better in either deeper snow or softer conditions. I feel like those things kind of intermix in a weird way. So it's not a perfect system, but I just want to give you guys some transparency on how I've tried to organize it. Now the first ski just doesn't quite make the cut for all mountain. This is kind of an honorable mention of the Meier Bangtail. This is a really fun kind of pseudo race ski. It doesn't quite fit into like the other categories either. This is probably closer to a designated carving ski, but it is a ton of fun and it doesn't quite punish you like a fake race ski or a real race ski does, right? It's got a little bit of softness to it, a little bit of give. It gives you a variety of like turn radiuses you can have access to. It's very fun. I love this ski a lot. I had a blast with it. I have a full review you can watch on that, but it's just at the edge of, I would say, this isn't quite all mountain. For the average day, you probably want a little bit more range. So I just want to give it an honorable mention though. It's at the very edge of this list. And if you're interested in these, go check out my review. Honorable mention. This is like, you know, if you're picking basketball teams, I guess the Meier Bangtail would be like the alternate. I don't know, it's a weird analogy. The first one that barely makes it into this category, but don't let that fool you, that's a bad ski, is the 2025 Stockli Montero AR. This ski is easily the best carving ski I have ever put on my feet. It is smooth in all senses of the word. It's smooth with gradual like flex progression. It's smooth with dampness. And somehow, when you get it on edge, it's smooth. Like, think about this, when you're on edge, you know, if you ever feel like that chatter as you're on edge, these are the first skis where I felt like the whole way through the turn, they feel smooth even when on edge. They're not cheap. These start at about 1,400 bucks before you get bindings on them. But if you are looking for the smoothest turn, for the best performing carving ski I've ever put on my feet, for essentially it feels like a luxury car, right? Like I've had Toyota Corollas that performed really well, you know, just mileage, they're reliable. And then I've had a Lexus IS. Going from like an Atomic Maverick to a Stockli Montero AR feels like going from the Toyota to the Lexus. You just feel every good part of the turn and it feels smooth the whole way through. These are also rockets, like you really have to be ready for them. You can't kind of get lazy with your turns. But if you're somebody who appreciates carving and appreciates a smooth turn, I haven't found anything that felt better on my feet than this. This is a ton of fun. It understands what makes a good carved turn and it's absolutely phenomenal. Downsides, one, obviously, these are spendy. They also are not the most diverse. I probably wouldn't want these on any kind of powder day. These really are best in corduroy. They can survive, you know, if the snow is kind of soft, if the snow, you know, you get a couple of inches. It's not like a race ski or like a really narrow ski where it's just gonna like completely fall in and dive. But that's not what it's made for. It's made for smooth carved turns with a variety of turn shape you can get. You know, and they definitely go fast, right? These are pretty good at more open radius turns. If you want a shorter radius turn, you could look at the Stockli Montero AX. You can also look at the Blackcrows Octo. So, you know, it has weaknesses, but it's almost hard to criticize it too much for those weaknesses because it's like, it doesn't even really attempt those things. This is meant for a good, smooth carve turn, especially if you like to go fast, you like to hit those hard GS turns. I've yet to find anything better, so. Stockli Montero AR. It did change in 2025, so you know, sometimes you'll see the older version go on sale. Those aren't bad skis, but they definitely made a few changes that really just gives you a little bit more range in your turns. The other ski that I'm gonna just talk about briefly that I don't have on hand is the Blackcrows Octo. There's a couple skis that are, again, just on the precipice. I don't know that I quite include them, like the DPS Pieceworks. The Blackcrows Octo last year was my ski of the year. I like the short radius turns, I like the stability, I like the way the tips interact with powder and going off trail. It's definitely more of a short radius ski. It's definitely got a top speed that you can find. It's not damp. But as far as like what you're getting and how much fun you can have, and you don't have to go that fast to have fun, the Blackcrows Octo, it's hard to have a conversation about all mountain skis without at least including the Blackcrows Octo. So I really love that ski. I think it's a lot of fun. I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't have it on hand and I reviewed it about a year ago now. But if you're considering all mountain skis, you want something that's easy to initiate, you like short radius turns, maybe you don't have a ton of runway to get your turns going, or maybe you just don't want to go that fast to have fun. That's the cool thing about short radius skis. You can not go that fast and get some really strong turns, get some big G-forces in and out of the turns. I feel like there's a huge audience that's gonna grow for short radius skis. So I'll talk about those more. The Blackcrows Octo just barely kind of trickles into this all mountain category. And the reason it's left of the Stockli is because I do feel like its shape and its weight lend it a little bit more to off-trail skiing. So if there's just like a few inches of powder, and even when I reviewed them, there was some powder, I enjoyed it, and I think it, you know, performed moderately well given its width. I would say that the Blackcrows Mirus Cor is kind of in a similar spot to the Carbon Pieceworks from DPS. It's got those similar short radius turns, but it doesn't quite have the stability on the tail that the Octo does, so it would probably be more in that short radius category rather than what I would, at least for myself or recommending to friends, consider for the all mountain category. But honorable mention, I guess, for both those. Up next, we have the Volkl Mantra 84. This is fairly similar to the old Volkl Kendo or Volkl Mantra 88, but with having a little less width. These are so much fun. They're very powerful skis. If you get them in the fall line, they will absolutely track down the hill. They've got enough diversity that you can kind of throw the skis when you need to kind of give yourself more feathered turns. Very similar to most Volkl skis, a lot of the turn initiation happens directly under the foot. They've kind of got that distinct feel, and these are no exception. The other thing that's nice about this is what kind of separates this from a Stockli Montero AR is that this has a little bit more variety, and especially in spring skiing, or if you get heavy wet snow, or if you just get snow that gets kind of sun-baked like we do in Idaho, these go through that really well. So you can still get that carving performance, but also not get kind of caught up in that heavy wet snow. And that's why these are a little bit farther over this way as far as diversity goes. I think there's a lot of my friends who are former racers who are looking for an all mountain ski that want something powerful and damp. And this scratches that itch. I think it's just kind of new to market, and people know the Kendo name, they know the M7 name. But for people who like a fast, powerful ski, I think this has kind of been overlooked so far. Again, it's brand new, so it hasn't had that much time to be overlooked. But if you like the Kendo, the Mantra 88, and you just want a little more power, or you just want to be a little bit more down the fall line, and you're willing to sacrifice some of the range, when the snow gets deeper and you have to take them off trail, these definitely don't have the range of an M7 or a Mantra 88. But if you're not really looking for that, and you want more power, you've skied on the Kendo and you go, oh, I'd like to go down the fall line a little bit more. These are absolute bullets. Very much worth checking out at the very least. It's like if you're doing cheese sampling and you're like, oh, I know I like Brie, or I know I like this kind of cheese. If you like the M7, you like the Kendo, do yourself a favor and at least demo these so you can try them out. Because I found that I like both those skis, and these were a lot of fun as well. All right, up next, we've got the Meier Quickdraw. I'm not gonna go too into depth, right? If you wanna see that, I've got a whole like designated review. I'm just gonna kind of give you the highlights here. I feel like this ski kind of fits in this place because while it's definitely good in soft snow, it doesn't have a ton of range. Like this would not be my go-to for a big powder day, you know, but it does well in soft snow. So it's kind of in this weird spot. The Quickdraw is really fun. I always compare this to kind of like a longboard, right? If you've had a skateboard versus a longboard, or a surfboard, right? If you've had like a quick kind of carving board for the river versus like one of those big open surfboards that you kind of learn on. This feels more like the big open surfboard or the longboard skateboarding. It's very smooth, very gradual progression. That's one thing Meier does really well, is just the smoothness of the flex is phenomenal. This is more of a cruisy open radius ski, but it's a ton of fun to carve on. And I think for a lot of people who are kind of intermediate that want to just start to feel that gradual bite of the turn hooking in, this is a ton of fun. The other thing that's unique about it is it's got this very like distinct tail shape. And what's nice is you can kind of sit on the tails and it's very forgiving for when you release the turn. Some of the drawbacks of the ski, as I've always felt like this really distinct hourglass shape can sometimes make it so that on really, really icy or steep pitches, sometimes the grip takes a little bit of time to initiate, or you have to kind of change your stance. It's not gonna grip directly underfoot. You have to kind of time out your turns. Now, like in the big picture, that's a pretty small drawback, but something you should be aware of. You know, if you're someone who's skiing at Cannon and you just need something to like survive, you know, you're closer to a mountain climber than a skier, this would not be my first choice. But at Bogus Basin, where you have those big open Super G hills and the snow's nice and soft, this is a ton of fun to just kind of cruise around on. Zach skied on these and also really enjoyed them. The other weak spot for these skis is these are not very like heavy, dense crud cutters. This is not your Nordica Enforcer 99 that's just gonna kind of plow through that spring skiing snow. It's not like it gets hung up like an Atomic Maverick or Atomic Bent or anything in the really soft snow, but it's definitely not a crud cutter by any means. But you know, it's not like it's trying to do that, but I just want to give you some context for what it does well and what it kind of has blind spots in. Also, it's worth mentioning, I'm not paid by any of these brands. These are all 100% my real opinions on these skis. Some of these skis were sent by the brands, but you know, it's like there's no way that I can demo a Meier ski. All of these skis I either bought, like I'd say about half of them I bought out of pocket, or were sent to me by the reps. So full disclosure on that, I guess, but I've never taken money from a ski brand. I've had people say, oh, how much do you charge? I'm like, no, we don't do that. You send the skis, I give my honest opinion, and that's it. So just so you guys know, I guess. That's probably why you can tell the production value is not very high, right? There's no charging for ski reviews. There's never gonna be any charging for ski reviews. These are all just my honest opinions. And a good like marker of that is that I work with smaller brands like Meier. To me, it's important. This is a cool brand and it deserves a platform like everybody else. So, you know, Meier, I'm very proud to say, is a good marker of showcasing that I am not pay to play with any of these videos. Anyway, just wanted to put that little note in there. Up next, I don't have it on hand, I'm not gonna talk about it too much, but I would say just before you get to the Renoun, after that Volkl Mantra 84, you have the Kastle MX 88. It does have some range to it, but I feel like it really does better on groomed runs. It is a very pingy ski. I feel like it gets kind of thrown around more, and I prefer the Kastle kind of distinct feeling on some of the wider skis like the ZX100, but it's worth mentioning, after the Volkl Mantra 84, you do have that Kastle MX 88. It is a fast ski and it is very responsive, but as soon as it gets into some of that more dense crud, it does kind of get pinged around more than you would expect. Not a bad option, but in the mix there. After that, you have the Renoun Endurance 88. Now, the Renoun Endurance 88 is a very interesting ski because while it is more of a carving ski, it has a lot more range than you might expect. These tips do surprisingly well in the off-trail powder. I don't know if it's just like the aggressive splay or what it is, but they feel good, and they feel good in soft snow because they are so kind of reactive to every single little thing. They carve well, they're fun to ski on, they've got a decent amount of range. I could see this being a very suitable daily driver for a lot of people. The big downside with this ski is you feel every single little thing. Now, if you're skiing on corduroy and it's a good day, that's phenomenal. It feels awesome. But boy, once you get into bad snow, once you get into stuff that's choppy, once you get into anything that's like icy and firm, but not easy to dig into, you feel every little thing, and that is a good thing and a bad thing. And if you get on bad snow, things that don't feel good, boy, you feel every inch of it with these skis. It just goes straight into your feet. So you know, if you've got perfect conditions, these are awesome skis, but if you have bad conditions, these are definitely not my first choice. But all in all, you know, if you get them in their element, it's a phenomenal ski. This is a brand out of Vermont. I think they're made in Canada. It's been a while since they sent these to me, so maybe it's changed since then, but a kind of a cool Vermont brand. And if you're interested, definitely worth checking out. These are a pretty good daily driver. I just don't think they have the range for bad conditions. If I had these skis, it'd be like, oh, the conditions are perfect, let's take them out. But maybe I pack another pair of skis like the M7 Mantra or the Nordica Enforcer, you know, just in case. In between this Renoun and Atomic Maverick, I would place the Blizzard Anomaly 88. I've talked a lot about the ski. I don't want to talk about it too much, but I would say with the Blizzard Anomaly 88, it does have a fair amount of range. It does carve decently well. I prefer the Blizzard Anomaly 94. Is that the right one? Yeah, the 94. Just because that shape feels like it kind of holds its own a lot better in that width. The Anomaly 88 is just kind of an awkward ski. It's trying to do a lot of different things. It's trying to have that kind of Volkl tip with that gradual flex from the Blizzard, you know, Rustler 10. But in doing that, it feels kind of like Frankenstein's monster. And the tips kind of drag through the snow. It can make it so it's like uncomfortable to carve, uncomfortable to hook up. It's just an awkward ski. It's not a ski I recommend. It does exist inside of this range here, probably between the Renoun and the Atomic. And I do feel like, you know, I took it in powder. To its credit, it definitely has more range than you would expect for its width. So it's kind of in that ballpark somewhere. It can hold an edge. It's not like a, you know, defective ski or anything, but it just tries to do too many different things. It's like somebody tried to build a ski with a spreadsheet and pull all these different attributes. Anyway, not a ski I recommend. Personally, or I didn't prefer it. I would rather be on the Blizzard Anomaly 94, 93, whatever width it is. But just for reference where it kind of exists. And, you know, the Anomaly 94 is probably just left of the Salomon Stance 90. I'm not going to go into those skis too much again because I don't have them on hand. Oh, this is an interesting one. The Stockli Stormrider 88. I would say that that's also, after the Anomaly, in between the Renoun and the Atomic Maverick. The Stormrider is very diverse. I mean, like, as far as the Stockli line goes, you can take it in more sets of weather. It's not, you know, a do-it-all ski. It's not going to be in that Volkl M7 Mantra range. It's not really going to be, you know, quite as far over as the Atomic or the Salomon. But they're pretty good. I mean, they're very forgiving. They're a lot like the Monero with the smoothness. Not quite as like dialed in, but still pretty smooth. But a lot more forgiving with the timing. I talked about with the Monero AR how like you have to have that timing down, but once you do, it's amazing. The Stormrider, you know, sacrifices a little bit of that power and a little bit of just like how much you can really load up the ski. It gives up just a fraction of that, but becomes much more accessible. You don't have to have the timing completely dialed in. You still get a smooth turn. You still have fun. I would say though that it definitely leans again over on this carving side while providing some versatility. I definitely wouldn't, you know, for all mountain skis, it definitely wouldn't be my first choice on a powder ski, but it'll get you through. It'll get you through some of those adverse conditions. The other nice thing about the Stormrider series is because they're a little bit on the denser side, or because they kind of carry their momentum more and they're pretty damp, you can take them through spring conditions and have it be comfortable. And, you know, they're very damp. It has that Stockli smoothness, so if you have something that's rough and chattery, you can still enjoy it. Now, that all being said, I did actually get a chance to get a first look at the Stockli Stormrider 88 for the 2026 version. You know, I didn't get enough time on them. I got maybe a couple hours. So I've been on the fence about whether or not I have enough info to do a review, but I did get a chance to try the new 2026 version, and as far as I know, Stockli is planning on sending me a pair of the 2026 to like really spend time on. But my first impressions, like as far as how they've changed from the previous year, I mean, it's not a big overhaul. I would say it's like a very gradual progression or things that they kind of fine-tune. So if you already like the previous version of the Stormrider, it seems like, you know, they didn't change the recipe. They just kind of dialed in a couple things that I like. The big notes I had were just that the tips bite in a little bit more. It's a little bit easier to get the ski engaged, which I enjoyed. And at high speeds, they kind of track a little bit better. Like they kind of stay true to where your direction is headed at higher speeds. You know, you get a ski like the Elan Ripstick or the old version of the Stormrider. As you go at higher speeds, it's easier for them to get kind of redirected. So for what it's worth, I have skied on the 2026 Stormrider 88. This isn't a full review, but I can say that if you like the 2025 version, you're going to enjoy the 2026 version. There's some really fun things that they've kind of narrowed down and I feel like improved upon. I mean, the Stormrider's awesome, but like I said, you know, there's a lot to like about it. I think the one thing I would say is that if you're looking for a ski that's going to be a powder ski, I've found that they don't tend to be, you know, really floaty skis. You look at something like a Maverick where it's got the Horizon tech and it really punches above its weight class for powder. I feel like the Stormrider can get by, but of all these skis here for a powder day, it would not be my first choice. But it has versatility in the carving. It also has versatility in warm, kind of soft snow. For powder, it kind of just gets by. After that, we now have the old version of the Atomic Maverick 88 Ti. Now, any Atomic ski you're seeing on this wall, I paid out of pocket for. Atomic does not send me any skis. You know, they're, I don't know what they've got going on, but no. All of these Atomic skis that you're gonna see behind me were paid out of pocket. These are my personal skis. These are my daily driver. The reason I kept the old version on the wall was basically just so you would have kind of a marker of where the ski sits and where the new version of the 88 CTI sits. I feel like it's really interesting to see where the previous version exists versus where the new version exists and kind of give you a map on the wall of where the new version is headed. As far as these go, I won't talk about them too much because like I said, I've got 2 reviews about this. This is the old version, this is kind of the dying version. But I'm just gonna talk about it really briefly. These are very powerful skis. You can give your energy into them and you will get them back. They carve phenomenally well for being an 88 width underfoot. The Titanal is very light. There's not a ton of it, but you still kind of get that benefit of getting your energy back out of the turn. The Horizon Tech punches way above its weight class in allowing you to have flotation for an 88mm width. I mean, it's not great, right? It's not like a designated powder ski or anything like that. That's why it's kind of on this side of the wall. But for its width, it gives you a lot more range than you would expect. You can get into 4, 5, 6 inches of powder, and if this is your only ski, you can have a ton of fun. It's why it makes a really great option for being an all-mountain ski, because if you care about carving, you're still getting that carving performance, and maybe losing, you know, a small 15 to 20% like loss in carving performance in order to get a ton of diversity with powder. The trade-off is, you know, these are not good in warm weather, in warm snow. They really get hung up. That Horizon Tech really works against you if you have heavy, wet, sticky snow. They do okay on firm snow, but once it goes from like firm snow to what you categorize as ice, it can get pinged around a little bit. The Titanal does help kind of the ski maintain its shape torsionally when it gets on edge. But again, it's a very light amount. Like I had damaged these and you could see the Titanal and it's like Titanal flakes on the inside. So it's a great ski though. I mean, if you think about what you're getting for performance and carving, you have to kind of be dialed in. You have to have good timing with your carving. This is not a super accessible ski for intermediate skiers, but if you're somebody who likes to carve and needs just a little bit of diversity so you can get through everything on the hill, it's really hard to have a bad day on these skis. Unless you're in spring snow conditions, then it's, you know, you'll find a bad day there. I had a day where I crashed and it was like, oh, that Horizon Tech, when it just touches onto some of that heavy, wet, sticky snow, it'll remind you why it's not a spring crud cutter. But other than that, bang for your buck. This is a phenomenal ski. I'm sad to see some of the changes they made. The new Maverick's not a bad ski, but this was on a different level from what the current version is that you can buy. Up next, you've got the Elan Ripstick 96 Green Edition. I don't have these skis on hand, and the Ripstick Black Edition has changed since I last reviewed it, so I'm just gonna talk about it pretty briefly. I like the Elan Ripstick 96. I think if you're an intermediate skier, that kind of asymmetrical shape really makes it easy to initiate turns. I like it because it is pretty good at short radius turns or shorter radius turns. It's got enough width that you can have fun in the powder. It definitely, once you hit a certain depth of snow. That like kind of square tip will really remind you, oh, this is not a powder ski. But as far as like diversity, it's pretty good. As far as short radius turns, it's really fun to just kind of throw the skis. They're on the lighter side. The carving from those short radius turns is fun. You kind of throw them and do those quick turns. It's a blast. I think any ski where you can have fun without going at breakneck speeds is pretty cool. Like it seems like there would be a broad appeal there. As far as off trail, you know, like I said, it's got that width, it gets by. But, you know, kind of like how the Horizon Tech works in sticky snow, I feel like the Ripstick is kind of the same in powder. Once you get over that line of powder, it's like, oh yeah, that square tip will kind of remind you of why these are not designated powder skis, at least at that width. But again, a very fun ski, very diverse. I feel like there's a lot of value there in where you can go and where you can have fun. I think there's a lot of appeal there for people, especially, like I said, intermediate skiers who want a really easy turn initiation, who don't want to be kind of bottlenecked into just carving as they're progressing and learning. And, you know, any skier can enjoy this, but I feel like there's a lot of value for those intermediate to advanced skiers who are like, oh, I've got an easy to initiate turn, I've got fun kind of hop turns in the woods, I've got enough width that I can kind of explore the powder in the trees, and I've got that asymmetrical shape. There's a lot of cool things going on with the Ripstick. I'd be interested to try some of the other widths, but as of right now, I've just tried everything at the demo shop. Next, we have the Meier Wrangler. Again, another ski from Meier, handmade. This is one of my favorite Meier skis in the line. You know, it's kind of got these cowboy graphics. I always have some fun quip. Bow, 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 bow. You ever put your cold feet into a warm bath? That's what it feels like to ski on the Meier Wrangler. These are very similar in like function to the Atomic Maverick, but I feel like they do better off trail. Now, some of that is the width, but I think some of it too is the mounting point. You're able to sit on the tails a little bit more so you can get more flotation out of it. It blends the lines between on trail and off trail a little bit better than the Maverick. I will say these aren't as forgiving as the Maverick. You have to really load them up. It's not gonna kind of give you as much leeway with your carving. I feel like you have to like really stand on these to get the power back out. But there's a lot to like here. And I think especially if you're somebody who likes the old Atomic Maverick and you don't like the new Atomic Maverick and you're looking for a substitute, I think this is a pretty good alternative because you've got enough width that you can kind of get on the tails and it's got more flotation. It's got enough power when you're carving to get similar style turns. I will say you're not getting quite as much power in and out of the turns as the Maverick, but it's pretty darn close. And for people like Zach who ski more aggressive lines, I think he would enjoy this more than the Maverick. I guess I can't speak for him, but that's kind of the vibe I get as far as when he was skiing on them. There's a lot to like here. These are very unique skis. If you had to pick just one ski where you're gonna be in Idaho and you wanna be able to carve, but you wanna enjoy your off-trail time, this is an awesome option. It's not talked about a lot, and I feel like this is, I think last year this was my ski of the year. As far as indie skis, this ski is very much slept on and a really cool option. Up next, you got the Salomon Stance 90. Now, Salomon did send me these skis, although they are not sending me any skis going into next year, so just full disclosure as far as that goes, which is funny for 100 different reasons, but I'm not gonna get into the politics of Salomon. As far as the Stance 90, this is a really fun ski. I feel like if you are somebody who likes the Elan Ripstick 96 Green Edition, but you've progressed in your skiing, you want a little bit more power, you don't need the ski to be quite as forgiving, the Stance 90 is a nice kind of next step from the Elan Ripstick 96. It's still got a ton of forgiveness. It's not the stiffest ski by any means. It's not on that same level of an Atomic Maverick or a Stockli Montera AR where you have to have everything dialed in, but it can still carve a solid turn. It still creates a strong platform and it's still got enough rigidity that you can kind of hold the line and get on some firmer snow. It definitely caps out. I would say, again, once you go past corduroy into ice, you are gonna feel more of that chatter. It's also, you know, not the best powder ski out there. It's certainly making the most of these tips, but it's not gonna give you that same level of powder performance that you get out of like an Atomic Bent or something like a Salomon QST. But again, if you had to pick a daily driver, this is a pretty good option. If you're not quite at the dialed in Atomic Maverick and you feel like you want to get something a little bit more powerful than the Elan Ripstick, this is a pretty nice ski. You don't see it talked about a lot, but for a lot of people, I feel like this is a very forgiving platform. And again, the name of the game with a lot of these skis is diversity, is being able to go anywhere on the mountain and have a pretty good time. This accomplishes that. There are a couple of downsides. Like I said, they can chatter a little bit. The other thing that you'll see is that as these skis have gotten more miles on them, you're starting to see already a little bit of fraying on the tops. I'm not sure Salomon has the best return policy. I've had some negative experiences trying to get my Salomon QST 106s warranted, so take that for what it's worth. But as far as value goes, these are certainly a nice ski and a pretty darn good value. The tips can get a little bit chattery on the hard pack. I also found, like the Elan Ripstick, that they do have a little bit of a top speed. And once you get past GS speeds, especially on that hill where it's windy, you will feel the wind kind of grab these tips and they do find a top speed. It's not as, pronounced as the Elan Ripstick or, what was the other one? The Blackcrows Mirus Cor definitely does that as well. It's not as much, but it's definitely there. So if you're somebody who is going, for tuck runs, or you're somebody who wants a crud buster or something that's going to be damp on firmer snow, this will have its limitations. But all in all, like for the average person who wants to graduate up from the Elan Ripstick, who doesn't care about tuck runs or, going on really firm days, this is an awesome option. You get a lot of bang for your buck. And I think where the ski really shines is, in fact, its range. It has a wide range of terrain it can go on and be competent. Funny enough, you can see there's a few skis between the old Maverick and the new Maverick. This new Maverick has definitely moved out more towards the free ride, I don't know how you want to say it, off-trail, soft snow performance, and less in being dialed in with the carving. Now the carving DNA is still there. The platform, that even goes back to the Vantage is still there. The other thing that they changed from the old version to the new version is the introduction of carbon, right? These are the Maverick 88 Ti's and the Maverick 88 CTIs. What is nice about that is it makes it easier to initiate the turn. It's more forgiving with just getting the ski going, which is nice for off-trail performance. You also get a more aggressive splay that kind of starts earlier, which means there's less of the ski contacting the snow. These ones are 179, the previous ones are 176, and I would say that the platform that's actually on snow feels pretty similar between these two. The good part about the carbon is that it makes the skis easier to initiate the turn. Your timing doesn't have to be quite as dialed in. It's a little bit more forgiving. It makes it a lot more accessible, honestly, to a wider variety of skills. Like earlier skiers, intermediate, advanced, can enjoy this more. This is more like an Elan Ripstick with who can access it. That was probably one of the drawbacks of the old Maverick, is that it wasn't the most accessible. But what you lose in that carbon and that earlier splay is the reliability of the Maverick 88 Ti. It does not have the same threshold for energy that you can put into it and get back out. It also is not as reliable for like the chatter. Once you load it up, you will feel these give you kickback because they cannot hold as much energy as the previous ones. So there's always pluses and minuses. I mean, these still were highly rated. I think they were like a 9.2 or something like that. I still really like these skis. It's just disappointing to see something that is very powerful, very high in performance, and then you see them kind of water it down for a general audience. It makes sense, right? You're trying to sell skis, but it does make me a little sad that you're trying to make these more for freestyle or more for the average person rather than something that has really high performance for its width. If it was up to me, I would buy the older version versus the new version, but again, that will vary from person to person. For the average skier, these probably are easier to recommend. And as always, with this Horizon tech, you are getting much more flotation than you kind of would expect. Oh, I forgot to mention it, but probably right between here somewhere, you have the Volkl Mantra 88. I have not skied on the 2026 version, so that's why I kind of left it out. I've got a whole review on the Volkl Kendo, which is the same. It's got great diversity in turn radiuses. It's really stable in most conditions. As far as an all mountain ski or a safe bet, if I had to have one ski that would kind of just live in my car, I think this is an excellent option. It definitely is not a great powder ski. I've skied it in powder and it does okay. Like, it definitely survives and it'll get you through it a lot better than a Mantra 84 will. But it's not really meant for that. It's meant to be a damp ski, right? It's really good at getting rid of vibration or chatter, while also having good weight and good momentum through the turns, so that if you hit heavy wet snow that's been kind of sunbaked, you're not gonna kind of lurch as much. It's gonna kind of cruise through it and get you through those conditions well. This is one of my favorite skis. This is probably one of the skis that I put the most mileage on this year, just because I kept reaching for it in bad weather. But if you have perfect corduroy, right, I'm gonna be more with one of these carving oriented skis. And if I have a powder day, I'm gonna go with a more designated powder ski. But what you don't expect is, like, when the snow is bad, this is the first ski I find myself reaching for. This is a phenomenal ski, one of my favorite skis of the year. Absolutely awesome, but make sure you get it for the right job. It's also similar to the Mantra 88 and the Mantra 84. A lot of the turn happens directly underfoot, kind of with that signature Volkl feel. I feel like this was a big improvement too, generation-wise, from some of the previous generations where they would kind of stick down the fall line more. These are certainly more forgiving and more accessible to most people. But again, it's still in that vein of the Mantra line. It didn't lose a lot of its DNA. I would say it's not as like something where it's not as stripped down or changed as the Maverick generation to generation. This carries a lot of that good momentum, good weight, good turn style, while just being more approachable with the turn initiation. This is a phenomenal ski though. I really, really can't stress enough how impressed I was by these. And again, Volkl sent me these, full disclosure, but they sent me a used pair and I just gave my honest opinion. After the Volkl M7 Mantra, I would go with the Nordica Enforcer 99. I don't have it on hand, so I can't talk about it too much. Nordica and Blizzard are very touchy about the reviews I've made, being critical of them. So, you know, I don't know why, that's fine. But just speaking honestly about it, I like the Enforcer 99. It's a lot more approachable than the previous generations of the Nordica Enforcer, just like it gives a little bit more when you're initiating the turn. It's also got a little bit more flexibility in turns. It's not as dead set. It's got more life coming out of the ski. Like, as far as like you put energy in flexing your boot, you're gonna get more energy back out of the ski. The Nordica Enforcer in 99, in my opinion, is comparable to the Volkl M7 Mantra. Now, my skiing style, I prefer the M7 Mantra, but there are people who have certain ski styles that like the ski to release its energy at different phases of the turn. And if you're one of those people who really likes to be on the tails of the skis, that really wants to kind of shoot out from the tail, I think you would prefer the Nordica Enforcer 99, especially since they redid it in 2025. It's a tremendous ski. I had a lot of fun on it. It's a really good crud cutter, kind of similar to the M7 Mantra, while having a ton of range. If you're one of those people who wants a ski that's gonna feel pretty good in all conditions, outside of like deep powder, I think that's a great option, especially for softer snow or wetter snow. And it's got a lot of power behind it. It's a very, very fun ski. It's high performing. I prefer the Enforcer 99 over the Enforcer 94. Those are the only two I think I've tested from the Enforcer. Again, it's based on what I can demo locally. But the changes they made in 2025, I think were really important. It seemed like also like they had talked about the wood that they're using has improved. I think it's a great option. Just make sure that it fits your ski style because it's very distinct. If you're somebody who wants the turn to kind of happen directly under your feet, probably you're more in the M7 Mantra. But if you're somebody who wants to just kind of get slingshot out of the end of the turn and you like that ski style, well, the Enforcer 99 would be a great option for you. As far as what would be next, I would put the Salomon QST 92 there. I don't have a pair on hand and I did not get a chance to ski on the Salomon QST 94, so I'm just gonna talk about it really briefly. You know, I think Salomon had a handful of people out to Annecy, France to test them out, so they gotta keep that budget rather than sending me a pair. But I'll try to get on a pair. I'm sure they'll come to my local demo shop eventually. I can't talk about something I haven't skied. As far as the Salomon QST 92 goes, it does really well off trail. It's a great daily driver option. It could be considered more in the middle, but as far as carving goes, it's not as like dead set on it. It gets a good turn. It feels good when you get it on edge. It's got a ton of diversity. It's fun off trail. It's got the cork dampener, so it's got a little bit of that going. And it's a tremendous value. I mean, oftentimes you can find it for under $400 if you look in the summer. You have to kind of guide it in the general direction you want it to go. It's not like pinpoint accuracy like the Maverick or some of these other skis. It's good for off trail. It's 92 and it does pretty well in the powder. Again, I won't go super deep, so it does kind of exist in a weird spot, but I don't think it's super carving oriented. It feels good when it gets there, it's nice and damp, but I would say that you're gonna have more fun off trail, and then when you get on the carved runs, you can still have fun. It feels a lot like snowboarding almost, the way that it kind of initiates and comes around. I also feel like once you get it on edge, it's very smooth and very comfortable being there, similar to how I felt about the older QST 98, which, you know, would probably just be a little bit to the right of that, or just past the bent 90 here. I like the QST line. I think it's a great value for what you get. I just feel like if you care about carving and you want a ton of accuracy, there are other options. Even Salomon Stance 90, you know, Atomic Maverick, there are other options. But if you're someone off trail who wants a little bit of dampness, who wants a ski that feels good once you do get it on edge, but it does not have the pinpoint accuracy in the carving. And so if your focus is carving and something you want to improve in and something you want to like dial in your timing and exactly where the turn gets you across the hill, there are probably better options. But if you're someone who has fun, wants to go off trail and just wants the carving to feel good when you do use it, then bang for buck, it's hard to beat the QST 92. Again, they're changing it and I don't have access to the QST 94. So let's just move on to the next ski. All right, up next, we're gonna talk about the Atomic Bent 90. Now, this is not, you know, like the widest ski, even though it is pretty far down on the wall. But what makes the Bent 90 a great option for more off-trail skiing than on-trail skiing is it's got the Horizon Tech, it's a pretty soft ski, it's pretty lightweight. It's not as much of a carving ski, but it can still carve decently. Like if you kind of massage in those open radius turns, it's still pretty fun. It's pretty fun for like kind of those little quick hop turns. There's a lot to like here. I would say if you're more off trail looking for an affordable daily driver, this is a great option. You could go this or the Salomon QST 92 as far as value go. For my money, personally, I prefer this. Your mileage may vary. It's got a nice shape, it's lightweight, the turns feel good, it's really kind of a nice gradual flex. The Horizon Tech gives you a lot more powder performance for your money than you might expect. The cons, they definitely get pinged around on firm snow. These are not like the Maverick where they have Titanal in them. They will get bounced around more. They also don't give you a ton of energy back out of your turn. They're not really meant for like performance carving. But for the bent line, they carve surprisingly well. They at least can load up and get you through the turn. It's just a platform you really have to kind of squeeze your energy out of. You can get decent turns, so at least it's giving you that option. I still prefer this over the Bent 85. The Bent 85 is like a much more bare bones watered down version versus the Bent 90. It's also giving you some of that Horizon Tech, which the Bent 85 doesn't really get. So bang for your buck, this is a nice ski. It just depends on what you want out of it. But if you're more carving focused, again, I would probably check out more of this wall. But if you're looking for something you can take off trail, beat up, and it'll still give you decent turns, I like the Bent 90. I think it's a fun ski, especially for the price you can find it at. Obviously, that's something you want to test out yourself, but with the Bent 90, I also recommend just mounting it one click back. I found that kind of hits the sweet spot. I enjoyed it more off trail. I felt like I got a little bit better flotation in light amounts of powder. But again, it's worth demoing with a pair of demo bindings so you can play with it. But me personally, based on my skiing style and my being a bigger guy, I prefer one click back from the recommended, which is 1/2 centimeter back. After the Bent 90, I would place the Blizzard Rustler 10. The Rustler 10, if you took a wide range of like powder skis and all mountain skis, I feel like the Rustler 10 is dead center in the middle. It's good at carving. It's not super responsive like a Maverick 88 or a Volkl Mantra 84 or a Monero, but it gives you solid, decent turns. The platform is wide enough that you can get stable footing. And then for off-trail performance, it's a very solid performance there as well, where it's like you've got decent flotation. It's nothing on a big powder day, like I'd rather be on a Bent 120 or something. But for at least a small amount of powder, you're still gonna have a ton of fun. The smoothness of the turn feels good. The off-trail performance and quick turns feels good. In my opinion, the Rustler 10 is like the dead center. If you're not sure what you want the ski to do, this ski does both things equally well and has a pretty wide range of capabilities as far as where you can go on the mountain. That being said, it's not a ski I would probably pick to buy myself. That's not because it's bad, it's just because it's not very distinct. Right, you get onto an Atomic Bent 120, that's a very distinct ski. You get onto a Monero, the turn is very distinct. The Rustler 10, though, if I had to like pick a ski to buy for a friend, not knowing anything about them, it is a pretty easy one to recommend. It's like, okay, well, you're gonna get a solid platform here on the groomed runs, carving, and you're gonna get a solid performance here for off-trail early powder days. It can get overwhelmed in either arena, but it's pretty even keeled as far as where it performs. Again, though, that's just a personal preference, ski style thing. I probably wouldn't go out and spend my own money on it, but it's a very nice ski, and I get why people like it. After the Rustler 10, you've got the Blackcrows Justis, which on paper seems like it'd be similar to the Rustler 10, but it's pretty different actually. It kind of sits in that same spot where it's a very good ski for like, I need this to do one of two things well. Like I need a safe bet. For instance, I was traveling around France. The Justis would have worked for every single day, whether I'm on the groomed runs and it hasn't snowed in a while and it's hard pack. It carves really well. It has this very distinct tip that's a little bit boxy at the top, and it really hooks into the turns a lot better than you expect. And it's a very distinct feeling, like it's a very rewarding carving feeling. But on top of that, when I took it in the powder, it performed so much better than I expected to. That, again, that kind of almost boxy, hexagonal shaped tip performed really well in the powder. It had the width to kind of stand on it. It gave me way more range in the powder than I was expecting. We got like a surprise storm, and I had so much fun on those Blackcrows Justis. So that is a phenomenal ski. Its big weak point, honestly, is that it's not the dampest ski. Blackcrows doesn't like to mess with the materials of their skis too much. They kind of seem to approach ski design from a shaping perspective, which I love because you end up getting these really innovative shapes, things like the Octo, the Mirus Cor, etc. But if you're looking for a weak point, when the snow gets really, really firm, or you just have like a lot of reverberation in the ski, it's not the dampest ski. It's not a Volkl M7 Mantra. It's not a Nordica Enforcer. But if I had to pick one ski to know that it's gonna have fun either on a well-groomed run or the powder, the Blackcrows Justis, in my opinion, really checks that box well, which is funny because it doesn't get talked about that much. It's kind of almost different from the Rustler, where it's got good range in these two areas, and then for chatter, it doesn't really have high priority. Although if you initiate the ski right, you can kind of override that. So if you're a strong skier, you can kind of get around that. But it's a very distinct feeling ski, whereas the Rustler 10 doesn't feel that distinct, if that makes sense. The Rustler 10 is a little bit damper, right? So it's not gonna put anyone off from its performance, versus the Justis, where you really need to be able to like power through those turns with a strong downhill ski to avoid chatter. But that being said, I'll take the distinct, strong feeling of the Justis any day over the Rustler 10 because I like the way it hooks up. I like that distinct carving feeling that you're only getting from that ski. It's a much more memorable ski, if nothing else. After that, you've got the Kastle ZX100. I didn't prefer the Kastle MX88 as much, but once I got on the ZX100, I finally understood that Kessel, however you want to say it, platform really works a lot better in that wider width. One, I had it on a powder day. It performed tremendously, especially for only being 100 millimeters width underfoot compared to like a designated powder ski. So the powder performance was unbelievable because you kind of feel everything under the feet. That performance on soft snow feels so nice. And with a little bit extra width, it seems to have more torsional rigidity or just becomes a stronger platform to carve on. Whereas the MX88, I felt every single little thing, which can feel bad. Like you don't always want that much feedback, especially on a bad snow condition day or on a firmer day, right? There's a bit more chatter. But with having a larger platform with the ZX100, it seemed like any of that chatter or any of that feedback you got was spread out and dispersed more evenly with having just a larger ski width-wise. So for me, I really like the ZX100. It's definitely, again, in that camp where if you get really firm snow and you need a damp ski, that's probably not where it shines. But for light amounts of powder, it performs so much better than you might expect. The carving is really like sharp and really responsive. So if you're somebody who likes carving and wants a light powder ski, I feel like it's a very good blend in that sense. Again, the cons on this ski is with that wider tip on the ZX100, the wind definitely gets caught on it, especially with it kind of having that like very almost translucent tip where it's very thin. I found just on windy days, you can feel it catch up on those top speeds a little bit more. If the snow underneath is firm, like I said, you're gonna feel it quite a lot. And also, if the snow is heavy and wet, it does get caught up a little bit more, similar to like an Elan Ripstick 96 or something like that. I mean, again, every ski has cons. None of these are exempt from that, but just so you know. But as far as like light amounts of powder and how they feel carving, 2 big thumbs up in those categories. We've got one of the most surprising standout skis for me this year was the Volkl Blaze 104, just because it kind of introduced me to a category of ski I didn't realize I would want or need. And this is a light powder ski. You know, it's definitely more on the powder side than carving side, but don't get that twisted. It does carve well. It's just the carving performance is a lot more kind of light on your feet. It's got a lot of shape similarities to the M7 Mantra, but it doesn't have a lot of the meat and beef that stands behind those skis. So, you know, you can get the turn initiated and the carving feels similar to the M7 Mantra on a good snow day, but on a bad snow day, these do not kind of cut through the crud the same way that the other ski does. They're not meant to, but just so you understand how they kind of compare. As far as light powder skis go though, this was one of my favorites. If I had 6 inches of snow and I could pick any ski, this would be it. It is so much fun for a light powder day. The skis are also really easy to kind of get those quick hop turns. If you're kind of fighting between that early season bramble of like one of those big kind of surprise first powder days where there's not a lot of base underneath, this is the perfect option because you can kind of maneuver really easily in between the trees, in between the brush and bramble, while also getting tremendous powder performance. That being said though, once the snow gets over, let's say 8 to 9 inches, you will feel these have a limit, right? And you'll feel the snow start to kind of purl over the top of the ski as like a warning. That being said though, I like the feedback. I like the feedback of knowing like, hey, you know, fair warning. You gotta start leaning back or, you know, like picking a different line. So weirdly enough, I like the shape of the tips for the powder because I feel like it gives me that feedback and that warning and just that feeling of like, hey, these skis are about to purl and they do not have the ability to kind of do that like a designated powder ski. But for light amounts of powder, for skiing in trees, I know some people use these for touring in backcountry. This was one of the most surprising skis to me and I had just a blast on them. I haven't skied the other widths, so this is just my opinion on the Blaze 104. Like I said, it's kind of on this side of the wall because once it gets into firmer snow, the carving's there. You can definitely load them up and carve on them. It just doesn't have the meat to kind of stand behind it like the M7 Mantra. But the trade-off is these are way better off trail than the M7 Mantra. And I honestly think that these and the M7 Mantra or a Mantra 88 really complement each other well. You would need a full powder ski. I feel like if you get big amounts of snow and you are kind of a powder hunter, you're gonna want something wider because these do have a limit. But you know, for like 90% of the days, this and an M7 Mantra covers a ton of ground. Again, Volkl sent me these, but this is a demo ski and I did not receive any money. They sent me the skis, I gave my honest opinion, and that's it. After that, we've got the Fischer Ranger 102. I did these on a demo day with a local shop, so they were not provided to me, and I don't have them in my hand. I use them for a day, but I'm just gonna talk about them kind of briefly. The Fischer Ranger 102 was interesting because I feel like it does perform well in light amounts of powder. It does well in the trees and kind of those hop turns, but there's a lot of drawbacks. It's a bit slower edge to edge. The tips can feel a little bit boxy. I will say that the ski does well when it comes to dampness. So if you're looking for a light powder ski that does bring some dampness to the table and that's important to you, it does well in that arena. The powder skiing feels smooth. The tails are fun to ride. But the downsides are like when it comes to carving, the inside ski likes to kind of track out of the way. They're, like I said, a little bit slower edge to edge, but you get more performance in the powder, so that's why they're kind of on this side of the wall. As far as Ranger 102, I think if you're kind of like, not bigger in stance, but just like a kind of a beefier skier or somebody who really is like, has the stance where they kind of charge through things versus someone who's maybe a little bit lighter on their feet. I could see someone like that really liking them. My brother has a pair and that's his kind of ski style. And while I was skiing on them, I was like, oh, that makes sense that he likes these. That all being said though, the design in general just feels a little long in the tooth. Like if you were comparing it to an Atomic Vantage back in the day, I could see like, oh, these are pretty like on the same level. But as skis have progressed, I just feel like the chunkiness of the ski and the awkwardness of the tips and just how kind of sluggish they get when you do try to carve on them, I feel like is just a little long in the tooth. Like skis current gen have come past that, whereas the Ranger 102 hasn't quite caught up. Again, I have no inside information of like when things are designed, but this just kind of feels like an older design. But you know, if you're really, the way that you ski is just very burly and you kind of power through everything, you may find that this is a perfect match. I just don't think that it's an easy recommendation for anyone. It's a very kind of distinct ski, and I think for what they cost versus how long in the tooth they feel, it's not a ski I would personally buy. But I could see for light amounts of powder or for specific use case, people really enjoying it. After that, like all of these skis now that I'm talking about really could be in either category, powder or all mountain. These are kind of just barely on the edge. But the next ski I'll talk about is a DPS Kaizen 105. I don't have a pair on hand. I just demoed them at the local shop. But they carve surprisingly well. That carbon that DPS uses is so springy, so lively, you get so much energy in and out of every turn. They also do well on light amounts of powder. If you're looking for a designated powder ski though, I would probably go with the Kaizen 112. I just think the performance there, the maneuverability, the flotation, everything is much better on the Kaizen 112. But if you're looking for a ski that will carve, I would rather be on the DPS Kaizen 105. That's why it kind of is fitting in this all mountain category where you can use it for both. That carbon is so responsive. You really, any drop of energy, you're gonna get all of it back out. The big downside with the Kaizen 105 is that if you get onto firmer snow, those skis will really get thrown around. They'll give you all of the energy back up into your feet. They are not damp skis. So as soon as you're like kind of coming through snow and you go from something that's soft to firm, you're gonna feel that. That being said though, like if you're carving around on like a perfectly groomed run or something that has fairly soft snow or corduroy, it's so fun. It's so springy. Even on the cat track, I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm building momentum, even just kind of turning on the cat track. So there's a lot to love there, and it does perform well in light amounts of powder. I do feel like for the price, for me personally, I like to have skis that are very distinct. I don't try to get one thing to do too many things. So I would probably go with like a DPS Kaizen 112 and then a designated carving ski, or maybe a Kaizen 112 and a damp ski to kind of offset each other. But if you were looking for an all mountain ski and you don't care about deep powder days, you just want to kind of go on some fun side hits and you want something that's springy and you don't go on firm snow days, the Kaizen 105 is a blast and at the very least worth checking out. Okay, and the last ski we'll talk about that barely makes it into the all mountain category, but you know, can't be ignored either, is the Atomic Bent 100. Again, I bought these skis myself. I like these skis a lot. These are very fun, but they really change a lot in performance based on where you mount them. For me specifically, I'm glad that I play with the mounting point. I prefer these at 2 clicks back, which is 1 centimeter back from factory recommended, although I am not a freestyle skier, so that may change based on what your use case is. These skis are nice because one, you get the Horizon Tech at 100 millimeters, which gives you quite a lot more range in the powder than you might expect. I would say once you get over a foot, you're probably gonna want something else like a bent 110 or a bent 120. They also carve better at 2 clicks back in my opinion, because what I found is when you had them factory mounted, you know, the tails tended to drag, whereas once I got them mounted to where I liked, I didn't have any of that tail dragging. They also are very maneuverable off trail. They're really easy to kind of make those hop turns in between the trees. They give you quite a lot of range for what you're buying, and I understand why they're so popular. In my opinion, again, I would probably get like a bent 120 and then an Atomic Maverick 88 or 95 if I was buying 2 pairs of skis and I liked that feeling. But I get it, like if for a lot of people, they aren't sure if they're gonna like powder or they just wanna kind of dip their toes into it and see if it's something they like. And this is a great introduction to that while still giving you reliable carving. I was very vocal about my dislike for the previous generation of Atomic Bent 100, I think 2023, 2024, something like that, where the wood core was just way too soft and noodly, and it would give you like the first half of the turn and then would just release your energy. This is not in that same vein. This is a much better ski than that previous build, and it seemed like they even acknowledged and then fixed that. Again though, with like any of these skis, it's just like you gotta pick what you want. If you're only gonna buy 1 pair of skis, this makes sense to me. I just think that you have to be really honest with yourself about what you're sacrificing with one pair of skis. And the big thing you're sacrificing with these is they're not damp. You get on firm snow, even when you're trees, you feel it when stuff kind of gets washed out at the bottom of like a rut. These get pinged around and thrown around on harder, firmer snow. But you're getting a lot of range, you're getting a lot of days where there's almost no powder days that you're gonna totally miss it. You may kind of be leaning back and holding your breath for some of those days, you know, hoping that you do not get your tips kind of grabbed by the powder. But if you look at these from like a range perspective of conditions you can have fun in, there is a lot to like here. As long as the snow is somewhat soft in some kind of way, either you're carving and it's corduroy that is at least somewhat soft that you can kind of get your edges in, you can make some fun turns. If the snow is soft and deep, you can have fun off trail. And I get the mass appeal of these. They're giving you a ton of value for what you're spending. I just think that for a lot of people, it would be worthwhile if you're avid skiers and you're putting a lot of mileage on to get 2 pairs of skis. Get a designated like all mountain carving ski, like again, like a Maverick 88, a Blackcrows Octo even for short radius, a Stockli Montero AR, a Meier Wrangler, and then get a designated powder ski like a bent 120. Trying to have one ski do a lot is just like setting your expectations a little too high for one ski. Now, amazingly, this ski does give you a lot for your money. You are getting a lot of bang for your buck, and I'm kind of amazed that one ski can stretch itself so far in either direction. But the big kind of Achilles heel here is you are not getting much in the way of dampness, and you know, you're gonna have limited turns that you can make. Again, it's kind of like that bent 90 similarly, where it has to be kind of a set radius or a pretty smooth turn. Any time where the conditions are fighting back in your carving, you don't have much to fight back with, which is fine, right? Maybe you can find a way around it, but I do like these skis a lot. I think that for a lot of people, they make sense. And if you are somebody who is just pretty pedestrian and doesn't want to go for a big powder day, but still wants to kind of have fun in the trees, wants to do some of the bigger powder days and only kind of cares about carving, there's a lot to love here. But again, like any ski, it has its limitations. So anyway, that's the end of the video. If you like this kind of content, please consider liking and subscribing. I will put affiliate links to all of the skis where I can that are featured in this video and talked about. Big shout out to the brands that send me the skis and let me hang on to them so I can kind of test them more thoroughly or get a better impression of where they fit on the wall. Of course, you know, I made a joke about it in the beginning, but shout out to Ski Essentials for kind of coming up with this format. I'm not trying to copy them in any way, and all of these opinions are totally independent. In fact, I didn't even watch their video just to make sure nothing kind of leached in as far as concepts, but I do want to give them credit where it's due of being the original creators of this format of comparing skis. Again, like I said, what I'm doing is very unique, but I do want to give credit where it's due. I hope you guys like this. It's very different. I'm trying different types of content. I'm hoping that I can just kind of help provide stuff that's valuable to you guys. I know that shopping for skis is really stressful, or hopefully you guys just find it interesting in how these things compare. I had a ton of fun making this. Hopefully you had fun enjoying it. I'm sure people will have a lot of different opinions as far as the placement, and I'm sure even me looking at it when I was coming back to kind of reassess it, I was like, oh, I think maybe this is wrong. But you know, it doesn't have to be perfectly accurate. I just want to give you guys an idea of where these skis exist in the all mountain lineup and how they compare. As always, if you want to support the channel, we have Ko-Fi, we have the company Venmo. I only shout those things out because when you guys do like donations through Google, Google takes almost 50% of it. So if you want to support the channel that way, you can. But as always, more than anything, just thanks for being here. Thanks for taking time out of your day to watch my videos. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said too, I may make more of these because there was a couple of sectors like powder skis or short radius skis or carving designated skis. We'll see if I have enough skis on hand to make those like a viable option, but something I'm definitely considering in the future. Also, there are skis like Peak skis. If you were to take a Peak 88, it would probably be somewhere in here. But you know, Peak is no longer making skis as far as I know, so I didn't want to kind of clutter the wall with something where it wasn't going to be relevant for people. But yeah, of course, as always, more than anything, just thanks for taking time out of your day to watch my videos. It means a ton to me, and I hope you enjoyed it. As always, I'll see you in the next one. See ya.